Welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, then I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you like the message, hey, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. If you download it from iTunes or Spotify or iHeartRadio, I just want to say thank you for being a part of my community. I hope you're getting value out of my podcast and out of my videos. You know, it's my mission to help people like you unleash your greatness within. You have enormous potential, and all I try to do is provide some tools and some resources that can help you get closer to achieving your goals and your dreams and your happiness. And you know, one of the great things I get to do as part of my podcast is I get the opportunity to interview high achievers, thought leaders, best-selling authors, business owners from all different types of backgrounds and fields. And you know what? Today was no different. I had the good fortune of interviewing Kim Fiske. The monster, her new book is The Monster Under the Bed, Uncovering the Lie That Drives Us. You see, Kim and I go back a lot of years. In fact, 20 years ago, we worked together, and she reached out to me and said, TJ, I'm writing a new book, or actually her first book. And she said, would you read it and then give me a testimonial or an endorsement? And of course, I did, and what a great book that is, so I encourage you to get a copy of it. But I gotta tell you, the interview that you're about to watch and participate in, what a great interview I had with Kim. What a great person she is, and boy, was she thoughtful. She's done her research, and she really does have an awesome attitude with some insights into how you can take more charge of your emotional destiny. And we're going to talk about some of those things. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the interview. All right? Kim, welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast.
Hey, TJ, good to be here.
It's great to have you. So our history goes back a little bit. Why don't you share with us your story?
Okay, I would love to. Thank you for having me again. I'm very grateful. It's good to be reconnected to you. I have been just interested in people for as long as I can remember. I have been a people watcher, a people processor. I just kind of sit back and listen to people, starting with myself, right? Like I've been interested in what made me tick. And then, so I've been in personal development, network marketing, relationship marketing, sales, which is the playground for human behavior, right? Yeah. And it's the learning, the kind of university of personal development. So that's where I started way back in the late 70s, early 80s. Cut my teeth with some companies, but more importantly, I really started awakening to what was possible for me, to who I really was, and what was driving me, what was what my things were when I was willing to look. I wasn't always willing to look though, but anyway, and then, so over the years, I moved to Utah at one point. This was right at the turn of the century. It was like 99, I think. And I needed a job, and I don't remember exactly the specifics but that's how I found you. We sold food storage, baby. Loved it. You were a kindred spirit back then, and I learned so much from you. And had so much fun because you were just that guy, like how you are right now. Wow,
that's right.
My husband, I got to tell you this funny thing. My husband and I, since we've met you, so 18 years, I guess 19 years, you used to do this all the time. I don't know if you do it anymore, but you used to go, we'd have these conversations across the desk from you. And I don't know if people can see me, but you'd throw your hand, like you'd say something, and then you'd throw your hands up in the air and go straight up. Like whatever you were saying, hey,
was that? Okay, so you're just saying, was that my way? I don't use it anymore. So
okay.
Was that my way of saying, like, what I mean is real, and I'm being straight with you?
Truth, yes.
Truth.
Yes, truth, straight up. This is the da-da-da-da-da, straight up. I would da-da-da-da-da. So we still do that today. Like Joe and I we'll be making a point, and one of us out of the blue will just go straight up. And then we have a little a TJ moment. Yeah. Did
I ever? Now this is getting really personal, but hey, I'm okay to be vulnerable.
All right.
But so, was there ever a time when I said, straight up, and I gave you some hard news or something you didn't agree with, or you were frustrated with me or anything like that?
I don't remember it. I know that you were a straight shooter, and I personally like that.
Yeah.
So even if I hadn't, even if specifically you were telling me something I didn't want to hear, I don't remember having the memory of, TJ, don't, I don't.
Okay. Well, I hope not, because I like to think I'm a cool guy, you know.
Well, but you know what? Actually, you probably, I hope I have rocked people's world before, because I've had it happen before.
Yeah.
Because I'm a straight shooter. I don't do it to be mean. It's out of love. But a lot of times people will be not happy with me for a minute. But then a year or two later, I've had them come back and go, I needed you to say what you said, because I wasn't ready to hear it then. But
That's true. That's a really valid point. So just to give an image of our connection that goes back. So back in the late 90s, we had one of the businesses I had helped start was a food storage company. And at the turn, if people can go back to that time, at the turn of the century, right, there was a lot of worries about Y2K and the world coming to an end and so forth. And I think at the time, correct me if my numbers are right, but I think I built the sales team between the two departments up to about 40 to 50 sales reps. Is that about that?
You know what? I don't remember. Because I didn't stay with you. I didn't keep going. Right. There was a change in my life, and I don't really. I mean, it's a kind of foggy time for me. I remember one other guy. In fact, if you said his name, I'd remember it. But he and I were kind of like the dynamic duo, and that's who I remember being in there. But you probably kept going after I kind of transitioned.
I did, but it was only a few months later that I became frustrated internally that I was living someone else's dream, right? It wasn't my dream to sell food storage or home security systems or whatever, but I thought that was a good place for me to cut my teeth in sales and kind of get some good training under my belt. And I remember as I went on, although we were making good money, I felt more and more disenchanted.
You were writing your book then too. I remember you were writing a book, because I remember you saying, and like you were writing it in your car or you were inundated with these principles at the time. So I don't know what book, if it was the If You Think You Can book, but you were driven, man. You were just absorbing personal development. You were writing stuff, journaling.
That's interesting that you say that, because that book that I was writing then has never come out. It was a book on sales performance, because that's where, as the VP of sales of that company you're talking about, that's where my focus was, VP of sales. But then, so I poured a lot of energy and thought into that, but then that went aside, and then the rest kind of went a different way. But I remember about you, I remember that we could have those straight up conversations. I remember you're very confident. You still are today. You're very articulate. You can communicate well. And I believed, if I remember my memory right, that goes back a lot of years, but your sales performance in terms of your ability to close a sale, if you will, I remember in that business, it was really good.
I believed in it. It was a passionate time for, many people. I believed in it.
Yeah, so you did great. So this is really cool to have you on the show, because we go back a long way. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because I'm very picky with straight up. Straight up.
Straight up. You're going to go back to using that now. Straight up.
I am. You totally put it in my mind. Straight up. One of the things that I do is I get requests every day to interview authors and speakers and high performers and so forth. But truth be told, every day I turn people down. And the reason why is, when you look at the guests that I've had on the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast, I mean, we're talking about Ken Blanchard, who wrote, the 1 Minute Manager. You're talking about Les Brown. You're talking about Hiram Smith, who started the Franklin Covey organization. And the list can go on and on and on with these high level achievers. And so you're in some great company, but I really look at you as someone who has dominated in your business. And if you want to share more about that or whatever, but also coming out with this book, you gave me the opportunity to endorse the book, and I did. And I read almost all of it. And the whole time I was reading it, I was thinking, yep, that's right. Yep, this is good stuff. So I'm curious, how did this book come about?
Well, so just to kind of continue on from the early
Perfect.
2000s when I
Perfect.
left you,
Okay.
I had two more babies, so we have four kids. We've moved a few times around, but I've always been still interested in relationship marketing, network marketing. It seems like the entrepreneurial playground, and it's where I could actually, like you said, cut my teeth on creating something out of nothing. Like that always inspired me. Like I want to create. Well, what I also noticed that there was a driving impetus that could never be satisfied. And in my training, so now I am a 7-figure income earner. I have a very large team in a network marketing company. I kind of stepped out of the company leadership roles of that. I still coach my team as needed here and there, but I have great, strong leaders on my team. So a couple years ago, I kind of stepped out because I felt the need to actually get these principles into more of the world, that where I had been in the trenches with my team and leadership development, and still it's all about me. It's unraveling, it's understanding me first. And then, oh my gosh, here's some strategies and techniques and ways to help others. But that's been my impetus. So 2 years ago, I just went, I'm not a writer, TJ, I'm a speaker, right? Like that's
Right.
I love speaking, but writing, holy cow, that's
a good description right there, because a lot of people don't see themselves as a writer. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say there.
Oh, well, you probably experience similar things because you're a speaker, you're a great speaker. And I'm also love freedom. And so it's like, wait, when I'm on stage, I never know what I'm going to do. And I go where I kind of feel led, or, where the energy takes me, which I love that.
Yep.
Can't do that in a book.
Yep. No, you can't.
You can't. And it's like my editors would come back and go, red line. That's speaker talk, Kim. You can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. Like crap. So I felt so confined. So the principles that I'm actually writing about in the book, I actually had to work through them even in writing the book. I have a whole chapter. So the book is called The Monster Under the Bed, Uncovering the Lie That Drives Us. And so the premise is, TJ, all the work we've done with so many people over the years, I've never found one, I hate to say this because maybe there is a few, but for the majority of people, including myself, no matter how outwardly successful, perfect, beautiful, skinny, smart, didn't matter outwardly what anyone looked like. Everyone had this little voice that said, I'm not okay. I'm not worthy. I'm not perfect. I'm not smart. So that interested me. So I really went on a research about where does that voice come from? If you're in a religious setting, sometimes you go, well, that's Satan or that's whatever. But I would have really a vast array of different variety of people, and they still suffered with it. And I'm like, where's that come from? So this is just a metaphor about our childhood brain. The brain, it's actually did a ton of brain science research, even though I'm not a brain scientist. Sure. I think I am.
Yeah, you become as a result of studying all that.
Exactly. I get real live people, right? Sometimes scientists just have a collection or whatever, but I feel just as much of a scientist as anybody because I've seen it in all different walks of life. And so I actually looked at how our brains developed when we were young, what survival brain, that emotional only processing brain that we had when we were little. And we didn't have this prefrontal cortex brain that's reasoning and logical that we doesn't fully develop till like mid-20s. So think about your identity, your feeling or your belief about yourself that was really forged back in like maybe before even 5. I don't go to really decide what that. And then how we are a product today for the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's not all bad. I talk about the survival brain or the limbic brain, the amygdala, really only has a few messages it knows how to send. It doesn't have any logic to it. So it gauges everything on emotion. And the messages it sends are, I think, you all hear fight, flight, freeze. Those are, survival brain messages. Yeah. Well, my theory is, doesn't have to be right, but it fits, is I believe flight is the first message our little selves felt. Again, this didn't live in language or reasoning. It lived in emotion. And flight was the shame. In fact, in the book, I have 10 monster tracks. These are reactions and behaviors that show up in our life today that show there's a monster under the bed or a lie that's down there that's kind of running the show. Shame, I believe, is the very first thing that we felt like we're not okay, and we better hide. We better not let people know because we might not be accepted. We have to be accepted in our community. We're community people. We weren't loners. We needed people to survive. And so anyway, it's just a kind of an interesting metaphor how the brain actually, because people really feel like they hear what I call in chapter 3 is chatter that says you're not okay, so you better hide. Or on the heels of that is a fight message. Many times it says, you got to be okay, so you better go prove you're okay. Win. And a lot of your message, in fact, I'd like to, in a little bit, draw it into the driving, proving energy that a lot of people had. I saw it in myself. Like, I got to be special. That was my lie, was I was only average. When I was 4, my mom and dad got divorced. And that plays into a huge amount of, identity issues for a little kid. And so it was all about me, and it was because of me. My dad didn't leave my mom. My dad left me to my little Kimmy self. So those are the messages that created the identity we are today. So I had this insatiable need to be special, was my little configuration of this process.
Sure.
And so of course I'm going to be number 1 in sales. Of course I'm going to, be a top money earner. Of course I'm going to, I can play that. My family was all musical. So I learned how to play the piano and sing and perform. Of course I did, because that's what was valued in my world. Anyway, I just could never get enough of it, right? Like, that's where it broke down.
That's really good. And but the problem I think with that, we got to be careful, is that you don't climb the ladder of success, realizing because of all your proving and showing that you're the best, that you end up finding you're leaning against the wrong wall. Right?
Well,
so
exactly.
one of the things that I say to folks is, and I'll say it to audiences, and I'm not sure that the audience ever really feels exactly what I'm feeling, but it's the concept of, you don't have to prove yourself. But I know that we live in a world that's very competitive, and that the marketplace, right, rewards high performance, right? Yep. It just does. And so there's a lot of energy that goes toward that. But I worry that when people's esteem or self-love or self-kindness or self-compassion or whatever is built on your achievements, I think that's a big problem.
Well, that's exactly the point of it, because here's a phrase I use a lot in the book. You can never get enough of what you never needed to begin with.
Oh, that's good. Say that again. That's
okay.
Good.
You can never get enough of what you never needed to begin with, because it's ever craving. It's a craving and never will be satisfied. I've worked with multiple 6-figure income people over the years. Never enough money. It's never good enough. I've worked in the diet and health. The current company I'm with is a health and diet weight loss company. Well, believe me, the monster's big time in that world, because
for sure. Yeah.
I gotta look a certain way. I gotta weigh a certain amount. Why? Why is that? Why do you need to? What's the driving force behind it? They don't even know. And this is the kind of the biggest point of the book, is that it's building an awareness about these things that are I call it the monster energy. I can't say that. I have to be careful because that's a drink, but it's the monster energy to, like you said, prove, but you can't get there from here. You can't, it's a lie to begin with.
Right.
That never needed to be proved anything different. You were unconditionally loved, intrinsically valuable, 100% worthy. There is nothing ever. Think about a little 2-year-old, 3-year-old child. Is there anything that they need to do to be more lovable, more accepted, more worthy, more perfect?
No, they're beautiful, aren't they? God's greatest miracle is those little kids. It's just amazing.
Now think of yourself at 2 and 3. This is what I have audiences do many times. It's like, get really quiet and picture how, because this, straight up, this is what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
When we're little, and we don't understand. We just are, we only have a very inaccurate processing. Our operating system is not, it's for survival. So it served a purpose for our maybe species or for, whatever, but it doesn't serve us now in where we are with ourselves. So when we felt we weren't okay on some level, and again, it's a feeling that's inaccurate, then we've been looking for that acceptance inaccurately, but still true because we believed it. So there's a thing called Hebb's Law. Hebb's Law says whatever fires together, wires together. And that is talking about, and again, I go back to my geeky brain science stuff, but that's how your actually emotional and thought neuro pathways were created when you were 3. I don't know what age, it starts much younger, right. But it's one of these things where emotion fires. This is my theory. Hebb's Law is Hebb's Law. My theory of Hebb's Law, because it doesn't go into explain this part of it, and I think it fits. When you have a strong emotional experience, that's a firing of synapses. That's a firing.
Totally, 100%.
Yep. Then wiring is repetition. So
okay, so let's have a discussion about that. I agree with everything you're saying.
Okay.
But where you're leading it, there might be a little bit of a difference.
Okay.
I look at it when there's a traumatic experience and those neurons are firing off, the emotion is high. You don't necessarily need repetition.
Nope.
You have such an impactful experience that in that moment,
yep,
you created a highway up there in the neuros, right?
Yep.
Connections,
Yep.
synaptic connections.
Yep.
And so breaking those is why we started early on years ago, the Power to Shape Your Life seminar. We called it the breakthrough experience that changes your life forever. And the whole point was, let's break some of those synaptic connections,
yep.
those beliefs that are
yep.
false, that are built on a false premise.
Yep.
Anyway.
We're 100%. So, and this is fun because you and I have never really discussed this, but I do know you know this. I know you know this term. So let's say there's another part of our brain called the reticular activating system.
Correct.
Yep. Well, I call them mental bloodhounds in the book. But its job is to only show you evidence of what you have told it through emotion is true or significant. So I'm 2 years old, and in fact, I'm debating whether I should tell you my poop theory.
Oh, yeah, do. Please.
You want to hear my poop theory? Okay.
Straight up.
We can talk about poop on your show? Okay.
Let's have fun, right? And the listeners, for you that are listening, listen, life is about, hey, putting down some of the judgment, having fun, seeing where there's truth in things that people are sharing. So here we go.
All right. There's lots of truth in poop, man. You got to poop or die. Okay. So
that's good.
Well, think about this. How many kids do you have now, TJ?
Four.
Okay. So I've never asked you this question. I'm going to see if your wife would probably know this answer for sure, but I'm going to see if you do.
Okay.
When your kids were like not potty trained, but walking around, in a diaper, they were toddling around, blah, 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 and they had to poop. Did you ever notice that they went somewhere or did something when they had to poop? Did you remember ever?
It seems like I vaguely would want to respond with a yes.
Okay, no, but they weren't asking. They just
They didn't ask, no, huh?
Yeah, and so they weren't really even talking.
Walk into the other room or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
They'd go hide under the table. They'd go behind the couch.
Yeah. Okay, right.
I'd go find my kids with red, bloodshot eyes. They'd been grunting, and I'd go, "Oh, I know what year you've been, right?"
Right.
Well, in my studies of the research of the brain, and shame is the number1 monster track, by the way. That's what I told you. That's what I think we felt first. Okay. I was thinking about this. I'm like, why did kids go hide to poop? What made them feel like they had to go, like they don't do that to pee. They just did it to poop, right?
Yeah. Instinctively, what drove them to leave the room, right? Because they didn't have the logic to say,
no,
well, I don't want the odor to affect my neighbors around me.
No, it was all emotion. It was an emotional, and because they went to go hide, do it away from people, behind the couch, under the table, that's some shame behavior, right? That's a shame behavior. So, you know what? Here's my theory. I think it fits perfectly. and this is why I believe, I don't even know how early this starts, but it's completely, remember, no language, no logic. It's a feeling that kids have. When you changed a dirty diaper, 3 months old, 6 months old, what did we do? Oh, stinky. Oh my God. Right?
Totally.
And my husband couldn't even do it. He'd sit there and gag. Cam, this is yours. You got to come. He couldn't even do it. Right? So think about the little kid laying on that table or the bed or whatever. Like, they don't understand logically what you're saying, but they know something's funny about this activity. They know emotionally there's something up. Like, this might not be okay. This is different than anything else I do. Is that crazy?
Wow, that's good stuff.
It is. And it's like, well, that would explain. Logically, they don't have it. Language, they don't have it. But they know when it's time to do that thing, there's something wonky about that. Right. I'm going to go behind the couch, because they make funny faces, they gag, they throw up, they have some reaction to that.
And then that relates into other areas going forward, right? Yeah. There's other situations where we start to realize, I often tell the story in my speeches about John Wellwood in his book, Love and Awakening, where he says we're all born, and you'll love this, I think it goes right in line with what you're discussing here. He says we're all born into a castle with thousands of rooms. And we love every room. They're beautiful. They're all different, right? They have different character and colors and so forth. But as we develop through life and get a little bit older, we have friends that come to us that say, or family members that say, ooh, I don't like that room. And I don't like that room. And you find yourself starting to close off the doors to some of these rooms of yourself. And you close the windows and you shut them off from the rest of the world. And then he says, at one point in your life, you got to go back at some point and go back and open those doors and embrace them and say, you know what, that is beautiful. That is good. Let's open up those windows. Let's open up those shutters. And what he says is eventually you find that you're living in a castle with thousands of rooms, but only occupying one or two. So we have to be willing to look at some of these things and go. And I remember when I was working with Tony Robbins would always say, you know, adults are just 11 years old emotionally. Right? We haven't grown up and looked at our world a little differently. And that's what books like yours, right?
I would say it's even younger than 11. I think we're still 3 or 4, honestly.
I agree with you.
Right. And the reticular, so the mental bloodhounds, back to the point about we have to, you know, like we get into cycles where the reticular activating system. So let's say it's 2 years old. I think it's older, or I mean, earlier, maybe even with the shame thing, but we have to be okay. So the survival brain says you got to be okay. So you look around at your family, you look around at what's valued in your community, in your world, and you go, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that, because that's what these people want. People pleasing is also monster track number 2. We have to make people happy. Now, where it becomes toxic is when we're still wired to make our moms happy and we're 45 and married and your wife goes, what? Why are you doing that? You know, like when we violate our own desires because we have to, we don't want contention. We're trying to make everybody happy and we're sucked. Our soul is sucked. That's where it becomes, it's not that you don't want to make people happy, but at what cost, right? But the little 3-year-old is still wired, because what fired, to your point, the firing is the emotion. And what happens is those mental bloodhounds will only show you evidence of what you have told it through your intense emotion is true.
Right.
So if my truth as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, without logic or reason and completely emotionally processed was, I suck, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm bad. There's just a little handful of configurations of the message. It all kind of leads back to the one thing, but there's configurations of it. Now, guess what? The only evidence you're going to see all your life of that is. Right. So that's the wiring.
And that will dictate your performance, right? Because that'll become your self-concept, your self-image. All of a sudden, that's your truth and reality. And it's like it's your subconscious mind's purpose to make you act like you based on the data and the emotion that is stored at the subconscious level.
Yep.
Yeah, powerful.
Isn't it amazing? So the whole point, because people will go, well, okay, Kim, so what's the point of your work? Like, what are you doing? And I go, well, number one, It's to be aware. I have found huge relief from people just from understanding the brain science part of it. Oh, you mean it's not a character flaw? It's not a moral deficit? Like, they just kind of go, they feel a relief about it. And then you have to also be careful, though, because awareness in and of itself, because I always say, well, I want people to be aware. But honestly, awareness can kill you too, because you can just aware yourself to death. Because self-judgment, monster track number 3, which I'd probably move it to 2 if I had to do it again. It doesn't matter what order they're in anyway. But self-judgment is where the damage happens. It's like, comparison, let's say, is monster track number 4 or 5. Let's say I'm comparing myself to others. To your point, we look around and go, and our school systems, our families, we start that young, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I listen to parents now. Hey, Bobby doesn't do that. No, blah, 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 blah. Oh, be like your brother. Or just the inherent monsters of siblings is huge, because everybody's pitting against each other emotionally, trying to get everybody's approval, which you never needed to begin with, but you didn't know that. So it created
hey, I'll be real. So last night, so my 2 older boys have now moved out of the home. And
you're that old, TJ? You're that old? How did that happen?
I know, right? So you probably remember little Bryce. When
I do.
Old, yeah. So anyway, so they're off and away. And I remember I was driving. My daughter asked my 3rd child, Kyla, who is beautiful and awesome and a creator and just confident. But I found myself slipping into this mode when I was talking to her last night, where I was like, she was asking for a lot of things. It's Halloween last night. So to put a little timestamp on this, it was Halloween last night. And she wanted to go to this friend's house, and then she wanted to go to grandma's house for the grandma party thing, and then she wanted to go back to his friend's house and do some trick-or-treating around the neighborhood at this friend's house. And we've always done more of a trunk-or-treat type situation. Right. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, wow, you're really asking for a lot, girl. I said, you're like Connor, you're like a negotiator. Like, you're going to get a lot out of life because you're so good at expecting things. But I got to say, the boys never desired to go trick-or-treating the traditional way. They went to grandma's house, and then they would have a party over at our house. And I'm just wondering, why aren't some of your friends coming to our house to party, right? I would feel more comfortable with them. Her response was that she agreed. That she goes, Dad, I know that I'm asking for a lot, and I don't mean to. But then she said the truth, which is, Dad, I don't like it when you compare me to the boys. Mm. And
awareness.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even for a dad, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that she was taking it that way. And so that, by you mentioning that, was just a good reminder to me to make sure that I keep in check what expectations, what beliefs I might be transposing onto her that may not be best for her.
Well, it seriously, and we are all raised by our parents' monsters. I do have a little section in the book where I go, note to parents, like, don't beat yourself up, because
oh yeah, for sure.
There's no way you're going to really, even if it's perfect parenting, which, hello, where's that? But most of us are raised by our parents' monsters, like whatever they're, like, how many times do parents put things on their kids to not make the parents look bad, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's a huge thing, right? Because, I'm still a little 3-year-old trying to make myself okay.
Right.
And my kids are a reflection of that. See, That's all messed up.
I agree with you, 100%.
We go into those cycles. So the awareness without self-judgment, because even like right now, what you just did, you were a great example of, awareness. Now, if you stay in judgment of yourself, now you're going to go to guilt. Now you're going to go to shame. Now
that's the death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Yes. There, right? The book, The Four Agreements. What does he say? Yes. He says, "What
Don't
do we
take
do?
Things personal." Yeah.
Yeah. He says we beat ourselves up. We'll condemn ourselves 1,000 times after the one act is completed.
Yes.
Because of our own imagination.
And I hope so here's the other thing about it from that next level up that you just described or demonstrated is, if you would in the moment say, oh, Kyla, is that her name?
Yeah, Kyla.
Yeah. Oh, Kyla, yeah, I did that. I'm so sorry. That's right. You know what? Thank you for bringing that to my awareness. See, because that's setting the example of what you do when you look in the mirror, right? Like, don't be afraid of looking in the mirror,
Okay,
because we're
so
all going to do it.
that's a great point to the audience. I will say that after that, I go, that's a good point, honey. I'm sorry. And you
Yeah.
know what? I don't mean, when I say I'm sorry, I'm not looking for some codependency, right? I'm just saying, listen, that's not the better part of me. I realized I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And I will say to my kids, when I overreact on something or I snap at something, all through my 20 years of being a parent, my wife, one of the first things she said when she married me is, she said, what I love about you is you're quick to forgive. You're quick to say, I'm sorry. You're quick to resolve and then not hold on a grudge.
Right.
I am that way.
Yeah.
And so if someone does something wrong in my world, and I've played a role in that, listen, I feel better about myself just by throwing myself out there and go, hey, listen, I can see where maybe I come across wrong, or I can
Right.
see where that offended you, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, right?
Right.
To me, that's liberating. But for a
Right.
lot of people who, like you say, are still trying to prove themselves,
Yep. It's death.
It's death. No
It's
way
death.
am I going to show that.
Yep. And when you look at others who are not ready to look yet, who are defensive, who gets their buttons pushed, button pushing is like monster track number 6. How quickly do you get your button pushed? How angry, how offended do you get? It's never someone else. It's always you. So when someone is attacking me, let's say their buttons pushed, they're attacking me, whether it was meant to or not, I have a choice. And hurt people, right? So that's the best way to look at someone else who's maybe not dealing with their own stuff, not willing to look, not willing to be as self-actualized as what you just demonstrated with your daughter. They're not willing to look, so they're not ready right now.
True.
But so what? You know what? I can still love them. I can still treat them with love. I don't have to get my button pushed back.
That's right.
The minute the survival brain kicks into gear right now, we see it politically all over the place right now. People's survival, we're in primal survival mode emotionally as a country right now. It's scary.
Oh yeah.
It's scary. And so that's one of my impetuses is like, hey, let's listen to understand, keep Stephen Covey stuff. Let's calm it down, just calm it down. And one of the monster tracks I talk about is all or nothing. And I think that's the mode we get in when we go, either I'm right or you're right. And and then I have to be right. Because that's part of our survival brain too. We have to be right. So we live in judgment of others and then we dig in. Instead of, like, I just try to teach people everywhere in my world, it doesn't mean you have to change your opinion. Your opinion's not being threatened, even though it feels like your complete survival is being threatened.
Right.
Just calm down and you can believe what you believe. But, if we're going to get through this era right now, I think the era can get way, way, way worse if we don't, at least enough of us, have an influence of what I'm talking about.
Do you think that comes down to a deep feeling of self-worth? When someone feels that their performance, their decisions don't dictate the individual worth that they innately have, right? Where people feel like, you see people trying to prove their value by high performance, and that will make them feel good. The problem is that's a roller coaster. And rather than just accept yourself, you're the best you there ever was, be the best you can be.
But you know what? To the emotional brain, that's just a cliche. The emotional brain cannot hear that. And what really the end, one of the, and I'm still figuring this part out, it's still unfolding as well. But you know what was wired emotionally needs to be unwired and rewired emotionally. So just for an example, just right now, let's just try this. Close your eyes. And if you're watching this, just everybody, if you want to play, if you don't, it's fine. Do what you want to do. Just close your eyes for a minute and breathe deeply from your belly, like from the deepest part of your belly, not your chest. Like put your hand on your belly. Actually, women, don't judge, and breathe. So your belly extends. That is your deepest diaphragmatic breathing. Actually, from from a biological standpoint, that will calm you down and get you in touch with to your logical brain. It's going to calm down your survival brain. So on the inhale, say in your mind, I am. And on the exhale, say loved. Just do that a few times. And people that can actually put visuals with that, like whether they're just surrounding themselves in love and light, whatever. Some people, like for me, I had a huge love epiphany. I talk about it in the book where I was having quiet time. I was kind of just quieting down the chatter that was incessant. And I was doing this kind of an exercise. And actually, TJ, I was like, I had the biggest love infusion I have ever experienced in my entire life. And I've been born and raised in church. Like I'm a good Christian girl all my life.
That's right.
But I never had that kind of, like the Bible calls it born again or whatever. Like it was just, and I don't even want to mix this with religion.
No, you're good.
I just want to go spiritual. Like the deeper part of me got it. Like I felt my intrinsic worth and value. And honestly, from that day forward, nothing has ever looked or felt the same. Because why? It was rewired emotionally. This process, when you get to your intrinsic value and worth, is emotional. If it's not emotional, this work isn't done cerebrally.
That's
It's
right.
got to be emotional. And that little 3-year-old, see, it's the 3-year-old, and I'm just saying 3, but it's that little kid. That's who's under the bed, still scared. They're not okay.
And they are.
And they are. And they don't know it. So you need to go love that little kid. You need to love the little you that was always loved and always perfect and always worthy. But you didn't have the right brain equipment to process that accurately.
Totally.
And emotionally, it created this. And your entire identity. I had a woman, high-powered, successful businesswoman tell me once. She goes, Kim, I go, what would you be without your monster under the bed? She goes, I'd be a 300-pound bonbon eating, daytime TV watching slob, lazy slob.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, really? She goes, yeah, I can't not have that. I've got to have that to drive me to do what I do in my life.
I see that all the time.
Yep. And the truth of it, see, that's chatter. That's a wiring of thought that has just muscle memory of thought that's been wired through that little child inaccurate decision.
But if it didn't serve us, we wouldn't be doing it at the same time, right?
Well, serve which part of us? Which part is it serving?
I get it. But at every level, in every situation, it seems like, and I'm careful with extremes, but we're constantly as human beings trying to satisfy our need. Someone who's been abused in a relationship as an adult keeps going back to the same abuser, right? That's not healthy. But the need of knowing exactly how that person may respond versus maybe a new relationship and how that person will respond, at least I'm certain about what to expect in this relationship.
Well, and what does the abuser prove to me? That I'm bad. Do you see the little 3-year-old lie? They create more and more and more situations in their life because it's more important to be right about how bad and unworthy and imperfect I am than it is to be happy. Right? So the identity is so entrenched in this process. And some people, to your point, that's why they don't want to look, because they go, whoa, this
meeting my needs momentarily, but it's not going to meet their needs long-term in an area of fulfillment. So I love this, because on one hand, what I'm hearing you say about the emotion is, on one end, you can go to an event that's highly emotional and have some breakthrough experiences. Highly emotion, highly entertainment, highly want to get those emotions going. But you can equally have the same powerful event internally by going to a quiet place, sitting down, breathing from your belly. You know, this is weird that the last couple interviews, you included now, taken me through some some meditation. I've always been a thoughtful person. I've always been a ponderer, right? But to really sit down and breathe and then articulate internally in that state of calmness, right? You ladies, is particularly, it's been you females that have been taking me through this lately. I don't know if there's a message there, but it's a great thing. And my point is, I can see the power of slowing down and feeling and hearing the truth. And the truth is, you can find
the still small voice.
That still small voice is a real thing. And if you'll tune into that, you can't I don't think you can get to that still small voice in excitement events. I think exciting events are great.
Sure.
But when you can leave that and go over here and quietly meditate and think and ponder. I had to come to that place. When you say it's kind of trite and it's a cliche or whatever to be the best you, I had to come to that realization myself. I was that guy that didn't read until I was a junior in high school. And it's always been hard for me to read, yet I've written several books. A lot of people don't know that about me, but there was a point where I said to myself, I slowed down and I thought about it. And I said, you know what? I don't need to be defined by my ability by not reading very well. My kids can read better than me, even today. But I'll tell you what, I can work out you. I can work out, and I don't mean that in a competition way. I'm just saying I can outwork the next person.
You came up with another fight strategy to prove. It's because maybe the lie was you're dumb. Maybe the lie was, little kids that are dyslexic, or they come up with, I'm not smart enough. So therefore,
I'm not a reader.
Yeah. And that's good. Like, no one says you're going to lose your skill. Like, I had to be special. So I play the piano. I sing and play the piano. I perform. I public speak, right? I did all these to prove how special I was. When I defang my monster or I shift to a different energy source, I'm not losing my skill. My skills aren't going away, but it's not going to define, to your point, who I am, my value as a person. I can't get there from there. I have to slow down and go, wait, I got to rewire it with emotion. I got to know who my little self is that's been scared all of my life about being dumb or average or stupid or not good enough or like whatever the configuration is. I got to go heal that. That's what I call running to the roar. You're going to go lift up that bedspread and go look in the scary place where your little scared self still is.
Amen.
And that little kid, when that healing happens emotionally, the brain wiring redoes it. It's like just reprogramming your computer, but it's done emotionally. It has to be emotional.
I would think for our listeners, truly pausing, slowing down, and realizing how great and unique you are. And I know that's hard to do in the world that we live in that has so many demands being thrust on us and distractions and negative voices that are out there. Stop listening to those negative voices.
Including your own.
Including your own.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said to me the other day, the glass isn't half empty or full. Just be thankful you have a glass, right? We just need to, accept that none of us are perfect, that we all have room to improve. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. I think your message is really powerful. I wrote down here on my notes, I said, someone once said that any virtue taken to the extreme can become a vice.
Mm.
My suggestion for anyone listening to anyone's content is take in the information, ponder it, think about that, find out where there's maybe some true principles in there that can benefit you, your life. But understand, be careful not to take things to the extreme.
Except love. Can you take love to an extreme?
In its purest form? No. But if my love is driven to extreme that I have to prove to you that I love you, and so I call you 13 times a day to see where you're at every minute and then ask you, hey, do you love me?
Yeah, that's not love.
No. I'm talking about pure love, almost from a spiritual place, pure love toward others, pure love toward self.
Yourself. Yep. Clean the conduit. Like, that's kind of the image I have. It's like, I'm going to clean my conduit, not clean like in a moral sense, but like in a who am I, true awareness of who I really am.
Good.
Like, once it's not about me anymore, TJ, I can listen to you. once it's not about me anymore, because my identity is set, oh my gosh, now we can change the world. Now we can actually get everything we wanted, or we don't want it anymore. And it doesn't matter, but we're going to find that place of, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it is just, I want everyone to feel that. That's what I want. I want everyone to get the monster taken care of. You're not going to get rid of it, but you're going to go into a love of yourself, this true little intrinsic valuable place of loving yourself. Once that happens, the world shows up completely different, and you can actually do something. If not, it's all going to be about you, making sure everybody knows about you, about how you need help, you need validation, how good you are, how perfect you are, how rich you are, and that's why relationships fall apart, because we're only there because we need them to validate us. The minute they stop doing that, the relationship's over.
I think your concepts are right on. You know what I love too is I love the way your little what do you call them? Little titles or something? You have these
the monster tracks, the tracks.
Mark your tracks, and then you have cool titles for each one of them. I think you've done a great job, and I think you're a good example of this. What I do know about you is you are a person who loves people, and you love yourself, but not in a prideful way, right? You're so good, and you're helping so many people. Let me ask you this just in closing. Is there anything you would like to share with our audience in terms of where they can go to get your book, or any programs that you have, or anything like that you think would be a benefit?
Well, this is a new frontier for me. So I'm just still kind of evolving what I'm going to do with all this, because I never set out to write a book, right? Because I'm not an author. But I noticed from the work I've done with people, it opens a can of worms, and they need more support. Then it's not a one and done kind of thing. So you just go to kimfiske.com. And I think I've got both spellings of Fiske. So if you don't put an E on the end of it, which is the correct way.
Oh, okay. Right.
It's still going to go. But it's KIMFISKE.com. And basically, TJ, to be honest, I'm just still kind of figuring out the whole rest of the program. Like, I've got an event coming. When is this going to air?
We usually, once we do an interview, it's a few days later. So maybe.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be in Vegas. Yeah, Vegas is Sunday, November 4th, so might not make it in time for that. That's okay, though. Like, I'm not worried.
We'll do it. If you think that would be beneficial to maybe your event, my team will make it happen.
I would love it. It's my first standalone monster hunting event.
Oh, awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. And so I just kind of put it out there and thought, well, if I build it, they'll come, and whoever's supposed to be there will be there. And I'm not worried about it. And it's a great day. And I'm excited.
That's in Las Vegas, right? Is that
Las Vegas? Well, for me, it's this is Thursday. So it's Sunday, the 4th of November. And then I've got some other group, I just want to get in and roll up the sleeves and let's go. That's how I am. Right. Oh, wow. So I've got other small group coaching. I got a retreat in Mexico the end of January people can come to. That's going to be a real intimate roll up the sleeve thing. But that's all I really kind of have right now. I'm just kind of seeing how the universe guides the whole process and what needs to happen. Just having written books, and I know what happened on my first book, many doors are going to open for you that you can't even see right now, because people are looking for good content, and the way you've expressed it here in this interview is just very articulate, very good, I think very sound in kind of your thoughts and your research on it. So good job, Kim. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're doing great. Now make sure that you tell your husband I said hello, and I will. And your kids straight up. And your kids are all doing good. Yeah, 4 boys, and they're all grown and pretty much out of the house. 5 grandkids at this point. So you're a grandma. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was 10 when I started having children, so that's that's really good. Hey, I know with my oldest, my 2 sons, it won't be that too much longer, and I'll be there too. So yep. I hear it's really good. It's amazing. Nothing better. Awesome. Nothing better. Thank you so much for having me. You betcha. Go to anyone who's listening, make sure that you go to kimfiske.com right here. We'll put it up here, and check her out. She's great, and I appreciate you, Kim, being on the show. I'm excited to be back connected to you. I love talking to you always. So this is awesome. Well, keep up the good work. Okay, you too. Talk to you later. All right, bye-bye. All right, bye.